I would never admit that. So Motel 6 was like really popular when I was growing up in the 60s, because it actually started in 1962, a little homework on that, and it started in Santa Barbara. And it was considered to be like a good alternative for families because of its no-frills kinds of things. $6 a night, can you imagine that for a hotel room? That's why it's named Motel 6. But one of the reasons it has not done well, really hasn't caught up with some of the newer chains, newer in the sense that they came right after them, like the Holiday Inn or Best Western and some places like that. Those places actually provided a lot more amenities for people, like a TV, or like a clock radio, a coffee maker, a little refrigerator, Wi-Fi now. So Motel 6 couldn't really compete with that. So what they did is in the 80s, they started going through this campaign to upgrade their hotel and offer all the same things, but never quite took, I don't think, anymore. So if you see Motel 6s today, in Fresno, I know they're sometimes not in a great part of town anymore, and they're just kind of, you know, hanging on by the skin of their teeth, probably. You know, it's interesting that they still have this commercial out there. You probably heard it. They're still promoting. And they have this guy, what's his name? He's an actor. This is so-and-so. But at the end he says, we'll keep the light on for you. Right? We'll keep the light on for you. It's kind of meant to be kind of, you know, down home, kind of folksy hospitality. Because you would do that too, right? If you have guests coming in late, or some of you have adult kids maybe who are coming in late, you say, we'll leave the light on for you. But it's also a sign of hospitality. Like, come on in. This is your home. You're a welcome guest here. Now, leaving the light on, as the little campaign slogan is a measure of hospitality, as well as other good things that we do for people. So hospitality can happen when someone holds the door for you, another person, when you're going into a building. Hospitality can happen when someone lets you go ahead of them in traffic, or ahead of them in the supermarket line. That's hospitality. Hospitality can be seen when you give an older person your seat at some event, if they happen to be standing. Hospitality is there when an unexpected visitor maybe shows up at the house and you prepare a place for them and set the table for them. Hospitality happens when you give some nice water to the person who's coming to your door selling solar panels, which would be like every day, it seems to me. Okay? So hospitality is one of those things that you learn as a kid and then hopefully practice throughout your life. Jesus knew how important hospitality is, because to the Middle Eastern person, that is the greatest virtue. Somebody comes to your home, you feed them well, do everything for them. Even when I go to the homes of some Middle Eastern people, dinner is very different there. They give you so much food and they force you to eat it. And it's like, you can't even lift a plate without them being there. That's how important it is for them to practice hospitality. So Jesus knew that this kind of hospitality is very important in supporting his ministry and the ministry of his disciples who he was sending out. And when he sends them out, he tells them how to accept hospitality from others. He says, stay in the same home. Don't move around from one house to the other. Whoever offers you room and board, you stay there and accept it. Eat and drink what they put down, what they put before you. Okay? And then heal the sick there. That's your return to them. Heal their sick and let them know that God is close to them. But he also knew that not everybody's going to be hospitable. Ask those people who sell solar panels, okay? So some people just slam the door in your face or say, get out. I don't want anything to do with you. So Jesus said, wherever you're not welcome, whoever does not accept you, shake the dust from your sandals as you leave, which is a way of like giving testimony against them for their lack of hospitality. And Jesus says, it'll go easier for Sodom and Gomorrah than for those people. So the words of Jesus reward and bless those who know how to practice hospitality, but also a warning to those who are inhospitable. Now, some people say, well, hospitality is really just being polite and having good manners, right? Well, of course, being polite and having good manners is important. But hospitality in the Christian sense is more than that. It's about the way we love other people. Because you could be polite and not like somebody. You could be good-mannered and hate what you're doing. But what Jesus says is that hospitality gives you an opportunity to express your love for others in the way you work with them, in the way you serve them. I was reading a biography some years ago about President Ronald Reagan. And one thing that most people said about him is that he was very friendly to people from all walks of life, and that he was hospitable. He knew how to make people feel comfortable in his presence. So according to this story, there's this elderly woman named Frances who lived in San Francisco, and she would give money to the Republican Party faithfully, like $5 a year. That's all she could afford. But because she did it for so many years, one day she gets a letter from the Republican National Committee inviting her to dinner at the White House with President Reagan. But what Frances didn't read was that you had to make a huge donation, which was your RSVP. She didn't read that. So she got on a train and went cross country to DC, took her 4 days. She gets up there and they say, we don't have your name on the guest list. Who are you? Well, it just so happened that the CEO of a large corporation and donors to the Republican Party, he happened to be there and he heard this exchange. And he took her aside and found out like what the story was, how she had misunderstood this poor lady. So he said, hold on a moment, let's see what I could do. So he went and talked to the president's aide, explaining this woman's situation. So what they did is they offered her a personal tour of the White House if she would come back the next day. They said, maybe you'll even get to shake the president's hand. She was so excited about it. So she came back the next day, and sure enough, they brought her into the White House and were giving her her own tour. But they said to her, the president's schedule has changed, and therefore it's not likely you're going to see him. We apologize. But as soon as they were telling her this, apparently the president walked out of a meeting room, and he saw this elderly woman there. And the aide went up to him and kind of told him a few things. And the president looked at her and said, Frances!
Oh.
And he said, if I knew you were coming, I would have greeted you myself at the front door. And then he took her into the Oval Office and sat down with her. And for like 40 minutes, they talked about California and San Francisco and what her life was like and her children and her former husband and everything. And some of his aides were thinking like, what, you're spending too much time with this person? You got better things, more important things to do. But what the president did was practicing good hospitality, Christian hospitality, because he wasn't just giving this lady some of his time. He was giving her himself, his very presence. That's what Christian hospitality is. So, when we practice true hospitality, we understand that we are welcoming people. And we're not just giving them some time. We are giving them ourselves. And in fact, when we give of ourselves, we are like Christ to them, who gave himself to us. Jesus knew what hospitality was. He was on the receiving end of a lot of it, probably. But he also knew when hospitality was not honest, when it wasn't sincere. Take the example of when a leading religious Pharisee invited Jesus to his home to dine. And Jesus went to the man's home, and they were sitting at the table. And as they were eating, a sinful woman found her way into the house, poured oil on the feet of Jesus, washed his feet with her tears and dried them with her hair. And the religious leader, seeing this, was horrified and critical, saying, if Jesus only knew, if this guy knew what kind of woman this was doing this. Jesus read his thoughts, and he said to the religious leader, when I came into your house, you did not greet me with a kiss. You did not wash my feet. Basic hospitality. But what this woman has done expresses her love for me. So Jesus received hospitality. He welcomed it because it was people's opportunity to minister to him in love. And he let them do that. And not only that, Jesus returned hospitality. He freely and generously welcomed people into his company. He spent time with people who were in need. You know, sometimes when you're reading the Bible stories, it sounds like all these people were crowding around and he was blessing them, healing them one after the other. Okay, go on your way. But no, we could be sure that he spent time being present to them, listening to them tell their stories, expressing their needs, and he heard them. The night before he died, Jesus gives us another primary example of how important hospitality is. After the Last Supper, we read in John's Gospel, he put on an apron and knelt down and washed his disciples' feet. An act of service, an act of love. And then in the greatest example of hospitality, the next day, he accepted the cross that was given to him, and he laid down his life on it. What better, what more powerful example of hospitality can there be? The root word for hospitality comes from the Latin hospes, H-O-S-P-E-S, and it translates as guest, guest. And it is the root for other words we use as well, like host, hotel, hospice, hospital. In all of these words, the root is somehow caring for another person as a guest. So when we practice hospitality, however it's done, we are caring for a guest who has come into our presence. And that guest is Christ. So the way we express our love and hospitality towards others means that we're really loving Christ, who is a guest to us at that moment. How can we be better at practicing hospitality today when everybody's afraid to do anything for anybody? Well, you can probably think of some ways you could do this. Just simply saying hello, introducing yourself to the new person on the block, the new family, visiting somebody who's sick and actually spending time with them, practicing works of mercy for those who are in need in some way. Spend time with a friend maybe that you haven't spent time with recently. There's even a way of being hospitable to the people you live with under the same roof. Spending time with your spouse, spending time with your children, being present to them. This is what Christian hospitality is, taking care of the guests who are present to you. At the end of the gospel today, we hear how the 72 who were sent out come back after their little mission, and they are excited to tell Jesus all the amazing things they were able to do because of his name. And he commends them, and he says, "Rejoice, because your names are written in heaven." How beautiful. Rejoice, because your names are written in heaven. The reward or the blessing for good hospitality is that we will have our names written in heaven. And when we arrive at the pearly gates of heaven someday, we will know that we have succeeded, because we will see that Jesus has left the lights on for us.